So hi everyone, and thanks for joining the second part of our webinar series. It's really hard to believe that it's already December. I'm not quite sure where the year's gone, but here we are, 1st of December. So I know you guys are all really busy, so we'll try and keep this session to around 45 minutes with some question time at the end if you've got any questions. But hopefully there'll be a few key takeaways for everyone. So as you would have learned from last time, my name is Rachel Crockett and I'm the Regional Digital Sales Manager at NZME. And I'm really happy to be joined by Charles Clark, Marketing Director at Boma, as well as Kat Morgan, the Sales and Partnership Manager at Boma as well.
Thanks for having us, Rachel. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So as we mentioned last time, NZME has partnered with Boma to bring you some insights into marketing your company. So we know that social media and digital can be a pretty damn scary and daunting place, but we're here to break that down for you and provide some advice and hopefully prove that it's not so scary after all. So today we're going to cover off a bit more about why and how to use social media for your company, a bit about social tone, profiles, content planning, and more. So at any stage, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom and we can answer as we go, or we can answer at the end. But yeah, for now, I'll hand over to Charles and Kat.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So I thought it was worth, just before we get into the nitty-gritty, just to give you some feedback on some research that we recently did. So we went out to a whole bunch of accountants and said, tell us how you're using social media. And two key takeaways, which I thought would be relevant for today's session, was one, to look at the frequency, and then to look at what they're posting on social. So you can see on the left-hand graph that there is the vast majority, you would say, are probably in the couple of times a month to once a month. And then you do have a few which are sort of more frequent, a couple of times a week to maybe even once or twice a day. So that just might help you sort of place you in that cohort. Are you in the sort of more infrequent, or are you slightly more frequent? Be really interesting to hear where you guys are, if you want to pop that into the chat box as well. In terms of what accountants are posting on social media, it's a bit of a mix actually. So you can see there that educational content is by far the biggest segment at 31%, and then sort of closely followed by commentary and insights. And then there's a really sort of a mixture of videos, memes, photos, and other bits and pieces going on as well. So I just thought, as Rachel said, we're going to be sort of covering some ideas about how you can develop your online presence, and that just might give you a feeling for, before we start, where you might currently sit amongst your peers.
And hey, it seems that the majority of you are already using social media for your firm, which is great, but it's worthwhile just sort of, reiterating or recapping why it can be so powerful. First and foremost, social media is really great for brand awareness. It helps to support your website, which often is viewed as your sort of primary online shop window. But social media is there to really back that up, to give you visibility across different areas and potentially audiences. Social media platforms can also help amplify your content. So take a blog post, for example, that you publish on your website. Promoting that on your social media channels gives that blog post extra visibility, and it's driving traffic to your website, which is always a good thing. You can also share other commentary, insights, and video across your social platforms. Social media is a really great way to position your firm as an expert or thought leader by sharing that those insights and commentary that Charles mentioned is sort of quite common. And it really has become the new word of mouth versus old style referrals. So social media can be a really great tool for client acquisition, particularly if people are really engaging with your social posts, because anyone who comments on your post, their friends or connections will see that activity. So it just gives you a really broad reach across your clients and friends networks. And so for that reason, it's also really great for networking, joining community groups, meeting colleagues, like-minded peers, industry bodies, etc. And of course, engaging with your current clients and prospecting for new. So next slide, please, Charles. Thank you. So it feels like there's a new social media platform out there every 5 minutes. And yes, the young kids of the world can keep up with it all, but sometimes a bit overwhelming. For the purpose of today's convo, we really just want to focus on the 4 key platforms that are most used for business, being Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and more so now Instagram. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about each platform and the differences between them as we go. There's, of course, plenty of others: Pinterest, TikTok, Reddit, Snapchat, etc. The list goes on. But yeah, these are the 4 that we see being most used, and potentially from left to right in order of, I guess, relevance for this particular industry. So let's talk a little bit about tone. Here's a tweet that Dolly Parton shared, a really great imagery that can really just draw your attention, and it's a really great way to sort of succinctly describe how you should use each platforms. Now, of course, on each social media, you're probably going to have a slightly different audience. So therefore, the way that you interact and engage with that audience should and may vary. So you can sort of look at what others are doing to get an idea of about that, but look at things like the type of content that you post, the level of personalization versus professionalism in each platform, and consider the topics that you're likely to address in each platform as well. So you can see there, LinkedIn, it's a little bit more businessy. Probably you want to talk more about your services and skills and offering. Facebook, is probably really a one-stop shop. You can share your really professional content, but also show your personality. Instagram is very image driven, so you want to make sure that you're sharing imagery that's really going to pull in and captivate people. Now, here Dolly mentions Tinder. We won't be covering that today. Instead, let's talk about Twitter. Really, for those of you on Twitter, anything goes. It's probably the place where you've got the most content moving just super fast, and it's literally can be anything and everything. But yeah, so you might kind of start with LinkedIn and Facebook if you're new to social media. If you're sort of like, well, that's too much at once, just probably look at LinkedIn and Facebook to get you started.
One thing we often notice with accountants that we work with is that they might spend a lot of time on Twitter themselves. So they'll be following accounting influencers, relevant companies, like an example might be Xero. They'll often follow each other a lot. And what we often see is that they use Twitter as almost a form of it's almost like a social group networking, more so than the other networks where they seem to do more that is client focused or sort of prospect focused. So like, I'm not saying that will be the case for everyone, but it's just something that we've noticed is that it's a great place to talk about things and comment about issues and sort of see what's happening in the area on Twitter. And then oftentimes accounting firms use the other 3 networks to talk about them as a business and what they've been up to, and sort of engage with those with that new audience.
Good point.
So what we're going to talk about here is really sort of, I suppose, establishing your presence on your social channels. And really this goes for all of them. So LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So most of you probably already have a personal or LinkedIn page. I really strongly advise that you get a business page as well for your business. And you can see Kinder Pocock's here, who's a user of Boma. So the nice thing here is that people can actually follow your business page without having to friend you personally. So that's quite a nice thing. They can just follow it. There's no sort of like, oh, I don't necessarily know them, or I don't want to have that level of sort of social closeness or connection quite yet with someone, but I can at least follow a business page and then I can see what they're up to. It doesn't sort of, doesn't cost me anything. You can also do other things on a business page that you can't on a personal page. You can get reviews, you can advertise, you can give a lot of information, as we say here about, you can showcase awards and partnerships, share information about products and services. And there's a whole range of things that you can do here that you can't on a personal page. Which isn't to say that a personal page can't be a great place to talk about your business. And you'll see here Lilette in Australia and Glenn in the UK. So they are both they've got their A games on when it comes to social media. And you can see here with Lilette, she on her Twitter profile has everything that she's involved in, great imagery, especially her personal profile picture really sort of sets her up as a modern businesswoman. And you can see from what she's involved in, that's exactly what she is. So it's really telling that story, or starting to tell that story of her persona online. Glenn, on the other hand, you can see there he was UK's best sole practitioner. So he's very much focusing on his sort of personal business experience. You can see there he's talked about his Zero Awards, that's in his LinkedIn page. And then he's got a nice about section which sort of just showcases the various, I suppose, expertise that he's got. People like to think of LinkedIn as a resume, just sort of a personal perspective, but it's also very important for you as a business. If you do have colleagues, it's nice that they all basically join as sort of workers, because if someone goes to check out your firm and they only see one of you on there, what message is that giving? Rather, if they see that there's 5 or 10 people working there or more, then it just sort of goes to speak to the professionalism and I suppose the level of expertise and service that your business can offer if you have sort of more staff showing that they're employed there. Another thing you can do on LinkedIn quite easily is just endorse people. So you often see when you're on your LinkedIn page, it will say, a connection of yours, are they an expert in, and it'll sort of say, it might be in taxation or cash flow management, and you can then actually choose to recommend them. So that's just quite a nice thing on a personal note. If you know them and you know that they're good at what they do, you can recommend them, and then they'll often in turn recommend you. So just quite a nice way for you to build up your credibility within the marketplace, because when someone comes onto your personal LinkedIn page and they'll see all these recommendations. So if you're giving it to other people, hopefully they'll encourage them to recommend you as well. And obviously, hopefully it's going to be deserved, and you're not sort of recommending for someone for something that you're not 100% sure that they can do. I wouldn't recommend doing that, just in case someone then called you up and said, oh, I'm considering using this person. I see that you've recommended them. Can you tell me a bit more about it? That would be a bit awkward. So always be truthful. So in terms of your profile, Kat.
Yes, so it's worthwhile considering that this is something that needs to be looked at frequently. I would suggest as frequently, or probably even more as frequently, as you update your website. These are not static pages that are a one-time deal. They need to be refreshed and ensure that the messaging is relevant. A perfect example is when COVID hit, that if your messaging was really not empathetic, then when everyone was in lockdown, it just might have come across a bit wrong. So consider filling in all the sections in your social media profile and regularly keep them updated. So consider as well that if someone lands on your social page profile, in this case, you can see a Facebook profile, they might not know anything about your business and your services. So if you want to, or what ideally should happen, is that you've got all of the bits and pieces completed so they don't actually need to go to your website. Don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel here. You've probably got a lot of about us information on your website already. So copy and paste, make sure it's sort of accurate and up to date. So you've got a couple of different areas in Facebook. You've got a short bio, which is on your homepage, and then you've got a longer about us section where you can complete more detail about your services and talk about your skills and what makes your business unique or great. And why would a visitor want to connect with you and follow your social profile? It's also really useful to have those links back to your website. Again, as I mentioned before, social channels can be a really great link to promote the sort of more rich content that's on your website. And it's just little things like your office location, hours, and your contact details as well. So that's really important.
So a question we're often asked is, it's all very well knowing that I can use social media, but I get nervous about what I should be sharing. And I suppose the answer is there's no exact wrong or right. The first rule of thumb is always, as Kat said, to think about what your audience might be interested in, or your clients might be interested in, and then also put it through the lens of which social channels am I going to put it on. So, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but if it's sort of a birthday party for one of your staff members, that's probably not something you'd share on LinkedIn. You'd probably share something more like, well, Karen's done it here. Sorry, Sharon's done it here, and this was on, I think, Facebook, but you could equally share this on LinkedIn, which was about a webinar that they're going to be running. So there's lots of other things that you can share. So this is an event, whether it's online, like a webinar, or in real life. You can also remind clients about sort of key times in the year. So maybe it's GST time, maybe it's end of financial year. There's lots of key compliance dates that you guys will know that you can just pop into your social feeds. And just a nice reminder, and even though you're probably also sending your clients an email, it just is another thing that you can have on your social channel, which just shows that you guys are on top of it. You're on top of all the dates. If someone goes through and looks at your social profile, they'll see that you are aware of everything that's going on. You can also share news. So if there's news which is pretty coming thick and fast in these COVID times, so if there's changes to regulation, there's updates, there's a lot of things about different packages from the government to sort of help businesses and wages. There's so much that you can take and share, and whether you share it directly, you write something about it and share it maybe from within the Boma platform. We've got lots of information about these sorts of updates, or you see an interesting article maybe in the New Zealand Herald, and then you choose to share that with a commentary. Those things are really good as well. You'll also have lots of industry publications that you'll be aware of that are good sort of fodder for things that, or ideas of things to share. Other things you might like to share are events. So not too many live events going on at the moment, but they are happening occasionally. I know Attains and Accountex have sort of had a mixture of online and offline ones. Obviously Xerocon when that was happening, or you might be going to an event at your local trade association or in your local region, which might be relevant to a specific audience. So again, hop on that event. We'll talk about hashtags in a couple of minutes, but also be aware of those hashtags. And also don't forget about your clients' brands. So if they've had success in their business and you see a post from them celebrating something, engage with it, share it, like it, offer your congratulations. Just a great way to show that you care and that you're interested in what your clients are up to. And obviously, that'll have a nice feeling, that'll help strengthen your relationship with them, but also other people will look and say, oh, look, that's, an accountant who really cares about their clients. And then likewise, if you've got good news from your firm, so if you've got a new starter or if you've won an award, all these things are possible to share. Equally, if it is a birthday or you're doing some work, maybe out in the community, maybe charity based or something like that, again, all good things to share.
And you don't always have to create your own content. Take advantage of the social aspect of social media and you can share others' content. So in these two examples, just reshare an existing post. You also have the chance to add your own commentary. And then you can even reshare others' blog posts, or basically any web page that you find online is a resource that's available to share. Whether that's just an article in the New Zealand Herald that you want to share with your audience with a bit of commentary, whether it's a blog post that you found online, some videos, etc., or just a photo. Just take that, add in a reason why you're sharing it, why it's relevant to your audience, as a really great resource as well. Now, again, sort of we think back to Dolly's little tweet, obviously you've got potentially different content for each platform. So consider your audience in each of those channels and what type of information you think would be relevant for them. Now, let's talk a little bit about hashtags. You can see a couple of examples in there. So a hashtag is a mini search engine. So for example, in that first one on the left there, we've got hashtag small biz. So if someone, for example, is in Facebook or Twitter, they can search for that hashtag as a topic. They might be interested in any kind of articles on small biz. And then they will find that post and potentially your post as well. So you can basically create a hashtag regarding the topic of the post that you're sharing. You can have one aligned to your brand. So whether that's ABC accounting, you could put hashtag ABC accounting in every single social post that you send out. Then if people are searching for ABC accounting as an example in Facebook, they'll see potentially a bunch of those posts that have got that hashtag in them, as well as the option to go to your profile. So hashtags give your posts extra visibility, not only to your current followers, but to a new audience as well.
In terms of hashtags, you might be tempted to sort of think, oh, look, I'll add as many as I possibly can. I would tend on the, less is more. So you've got your business hashtag, which I would always recommend you include, and then think about, as Kat said, what's relevant to the post that you're doing. So maybe it's sort of 3 to 4, and that's a good rule of thumb. Any more than that, and unless it's sort of something super specific, so it's a webinar and it's a Xerocon, it's about 10 other things. So just think of the 3 or 4 most relevant ones, and then you can just, that's a good rule of thumb to apply.
Yeah, perfect. And one last little tip is for Twitter in particular, that's a platform that just moves so fast that you can literally post the same exact post multiple times throughout the day potentially, and it'll always reach a new audience. So particularly for Twitter, don't be afraid to repost something again and again. But you know what, that same goes for all platforms. If you posted something about a year ago, but it's still really relevant, don't be afraid to repost that, because even people who did see it the first time, let's face it, they would have forgotten it by now.
That's a good point. Actually, we see users of Boma. So some of them have favorite pieces of content at the same time every year. They'll go back and they'll read, because a lot of accounting things are sort of happen on an annual basis. So they'll know at a specific time of year that they should be talking about specific topics. So they might have, a post or an email that performed well a year ago. They can sort of dig it out, duplicate it, and then sort of resend it. Or equally, we might have new content about it, so they might want to update it. But as Kat said, yeah, definitely one's social memory is pretty short.
Definitely. Now, it's not called social media for no reason. Really, social media is all about having a bit of fun. It doesn't have to be serious and work focused all the time. In fact, no matter what platform this is sort of relevant for, your clients and colleagues will appreciate seeing some different tones in your posts. And it's a chance for you to show your personality, and it shows the real you and helps to build a more trustful relationship with your followers. So you can sort of make it things that you're passionate about. As an example, the causes you support, your business mission and vision and the values. Why are you doing what you're doing? Your clients would love to hear that from you. And client stories, whether that's a short testimonial quote that you might extract from an email and share with their permission, and it can be, you can sort of have their a notation of who it was from, or make it anonymous, and then just have fun, team photos, etc. If you get your office renovated, do some before and after pictures. Some great sort of examples like that is just to show who you are, and it helps to really build that authenticity. Keep it simple. Ideally throw in some brand related images. So there's some great examples of businesses where they have a brand color. So they might inject that color into every single image. So the ability to customize those images is pretty important, whether it's text over the top or just choosing an image that's always got something that includes an item that's got your brand color in it. So maintaining that sort of brand consistency, that's the ideal, but just have fun with it. That's, be authentic. Don't try and be too cheeky and risque, shall we say, unless that's your brand. So just be real. Final point to note is that obviously in social media, the images are really a key factor. So the good thing is that in Boma, you can either upload your own if you have something you would like to share, or we have an image library of over 1.7 royalty-free images. These can also be customized. You can edit them and apply filters, crop them, put text over the top, etc., and really make them your own.
Cool. So one of the big, I suppose, stumbling blocks for a lot of people is, they know they should be doing social, but how do you get started? So we've sort of broken it down into a couple of steps if you are at this point, or you might be, the list that I'm sort of about to go through, you might find that you're a little bit further along. So just bear with me as I work through just a couple of steps. So probably a good place to start is to get going on your personal social accounts. So you're probably on Facebook, probably on LinkedIn. So go and see what other people who you admire in the industry, other accountants, other influencers, other companies, and see how they're doing it. See when they're posting, see what they're posting, see how they construct their little posts. Are they long, are they short? Are they talking about, are they commenting a lot? See what hashtags they're using, and build up a little bit of a map about what you like about them, what you don't like, and then sort of sketch out a bit of a plan, which Kat will go into in a minute. Then, dip your toe into the water. So if you don't have any business accounts at all, then choose maybe one or two. And if you're having a bit of a sort of an unsure moment of which social channels to be on, go and ask some of your current clients, ask them where they spend their time. And if they're all on, say, Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, then go and be on those ones, because you want to be where your clients are, and especially where future clients are. There's definitely no point being on a social channel just for vanity if you know that none of your clients are going to be watching it. Now, it's time to build confidence. So one channel, and just maybe that's all you do in the first week, and then maybe the next week you do maybe another one, or maybe you do a different 2 posts, one on each network. The idea here is that over a couple of weeks you just build your confidence, and it's not at a cadence that you don't feel comfortable sort of handling amongst all your other work. Then you can also start to do things like think about what sorts of content are going to be most relevant. So hopefully when you were doing your sort of observation period, you would have seen that certain types of content or ideas from some people you like to, that you follow, are getting good traction. So you might think about how that applies to you. You might also ask your clients, if I was on social, what sorts of information would you be interested in? Or you might even know from looking at your Google Analytics on your website, what blog pages, what services pages on your website are getting lots of hits, or even what products or services do you want to promote? And then you can start to do posts maybe that talk to those and have the most popular ones. Ideally here, you'll start to get a feel for what's working and what's not. So how do you understand what's working? Well, you can look at the analytics on the social posts. So impressions, so that's how many people saw your post. And then you've got engagement, so likes, comments, shares, things like that. And obviously the more likes and comments and shares that you get, the more people are going to see it. And that brings us back to, if you are getting that engagement, always be responsive. So if someone likes it or if someone comments on your post, take that as an opportunity to have a little conversation with them. So thank them for commenting, maybe, ask them for a bit more information, just continue the conversation in a way that is kind of in a conversational tone. And you'd be surprised, you might just start off, what starts off as a sort of conversation on social media could end up a couple of weeks later turning up to an email or a phone call, which then leads to sort of a client-focused conversation. Equally, this goes very much towards, be responsive to people who positively engage, but also those who may be negatively engaged. So if you write something and someone comes back and says, oh, I disagree with that, that's fine. You can go and sort of have a conversation with them. another point which Rachel made earlier was, if someone is sort of has a negative experience, or you feel like the conversation would be better to be had in a more private setting, you can always just say, look, let's take this offline. Why don't you send me an email or a personal message, and then you can sort it out just between the two of you, maybe over an email or a phone call. Then the last thing is that, no one is an island when it comes to social media. So if you've got team members or colleagues, ask them to get involved as well. So maybe they wouldn't necessarily be posting on behalf of the business. Maybe that's just one person within your organization. But if you're posting, or if someone within your firm is posting, get your colleagues to share it, get them to like it, get them to comment on it. Those are all good ways to drive engagement, to drive interest. And the social engines, if they see that a particular post is getting engagement, that will just help them bump it up, so more people will see it. Because not everyone will see. If you just do an organic post, say you've got 100 followers, not all those 100 followers will see it. And we'll talk about ways that you can get more people seeing your post in a minute. So in terms of goals, I think I would approach social a little bit like you might do, with a sort of a cash flow plan with your clients. So you would say, look, what are our goals? What do we need to achieve, and why are we working to do this? So I've got some thought starters on the left-hand side. Is it that you want to connect with more people in the accounting community? Do you want more fans and followers on your page? And this one, be careful of chasing vanity metrics like fans and followers. If someone said, look, do you want 100 of the right followers who are, your perfect client, or do you want 1,000 people of whom 95% are sort of randoms who are never going to be your client? I'd always choose the smaller number of highly engaged and relevant, people. So if you see another firm that has lots and lots of followers, that's absolutely fine. You just want to make sure that your fans and followers are the most relevant for your offering. Another thing you might be looking for is reviews, as Kat said. So getting clients who really like what you've done, and you might find this out because they send you a quick note in an email thanking you, or they might say so in a voice call. Why don't you ask them, just send them the link to your Facebook or your Google My Business page, and ask them just to write a quick review. It'll only take a minute or two of your time. And having those reviews pop up on your social pages is really, really critical for social proof. As Kat said, people will often go to your social page even before they get to your website. So if you've got, 4 to 5 stars up there, that's just a great, I suppose, trust builder for people who are considering you, as their accountant. You might be looking for things like, driving engagement in business, or driving site traffic to your website. So again, there's different ways that you can do this. You could be hosting webinars or offering downloadable ebooks. You can promote them on your social pages and then link them back to your website. And then to access them, they have to put in their, their email address and their name. So whatever your goal is for social, I just recommend that you write it down, and that will really help you be clear about the sorts of actions that you take on social, and also where to invest your time. And then a couple of months later, you might review it and say, okay, we're really well connected with our community. Now I want to do another goal on my social. So, don't just set a goal and then sort of never review it. Set a goal, see how you go, review it, see how you've gone, and then make the next plan.
And yeah, hey, any goals need an action plan. Just like you work with your clients to put a plan in place for their businesses, you will achieve a better return on your marketing efforts when you have a plan on how you're going to help achieve those goals. And it doesn't need to be war and peace, but get it in your calendar, make it a non-negotiable, just like if it was a meeting. So first up, consider how often you're going to post. Now, a good sort of rule of thumb is if you can aim for 1 post a week, particularly in Facebook, you could probably get away with 1 a fortnight in LinkedIn. That would be sort of a minimum. It needs to just be something that you can consistently maintain. A lot of people get excited, do maybe 3 posts for a couple of weeks, and then don't post anything for a few weeks after that. And it's just not an ideal look. It's better to be consistent. And that will mean something different for each of you. If you want to know what a really great sweet spot is, I would suggest once a week on LinkedIn, 2 to 3 a week for Facebook. As we mentioned before, Twitter, anything goes. Instagram, probably, it varies. I see a lot of accountants who post infrequently on Instagram, but obviously the more sort of once a week would be amazing, but it just might not be feasible. But you know what your workload is. There's definitely tools like Boma that can help make that a lot quicker for you. When you post is also important. Consider the audience on each of your channels and when they're likely to be perusing those channels, whether that's before work, during work hours, lunch times, evenings, etc. You know, you might find, for example, that LinkedIn's more during work hours and that Facebook's more out of work hours. But as Charles mentioned, test and refine. So look at your analytics and sort of see, hey, if you did that Facebook post at 10 a.m. in the morning versus this one that went at 7 p.m. and kind of, you could even do 2 of the same posts on Twitter, for example, and see which one has the best results. So social media is about testing and refining. So do look at your analytics and see what's working. Now, when it comes to your plan, you also need to book in some time to respond, as Charles mentioned a couple of slides ago, that responsiveness and that engagement with the post is really critical to get visibility and to gain particularly visibility to a new audience. The more that you engage with each post means you're getting visibility to a new audience. Excuse me. Do things like book in time to visit pages of others in your industry, so industry bodies, your clients, your competitors. That can really help sort of get some ideas and inspiration and check out what the others do and see what kind of posts are working for those. With Boma, you have the ability to schedule your posts. So this isn't, you might have your weekly plan, but you don't necessarily need to think about marketing every week because you can schedule your posts in advance for as far in advance as you need to, whether that's weeks. Leave some spaces for more timely and topical posts. As an example, when COVID hit and we all went into lockdown, you want to be able to sort of create some commentary around that and do things as they come to hand. Lastly, to really reach a new audience in social media, you do need to spend a bit of extra money. So boosting a post, which is basically putting a bit of budget to take an existing post and put that in front of a new audience, or a specific ad to promote an event or a service. They are really the key ways to prospect for new leads in the social platforms. And then really consider out in advance, ideally, what you're going to post, whether that's the image, just the general topic, or whether you get really detailed. That certainly makes it easier when it comes time to going in and schedule those posts in advance, that you know what they are. And there's, as we've talked about, there's certain dates throughout the year, which with key compliance and tax dates that you know are really consistent. So pop them into your calendar straight away, holidays, the usual things that you can then create a post around.
Cool. So I think one last thing just to remember is that Facebook and LinkedIn especially are great places to really connect with other people in your industry. So there are huge numbers of groups out there. And I know, for example, that Heather Smith has that she's been running almost a daily catch up on Facebook where every day at 4 o'clock Australia time, and they just talk about topics of the day, what's stressing them out, maybe particular issues, and it's just a great support network. Other ones, and other groups will talk specifically about new regulations, issues. They're also great for looking for new opportunities or new employees. The accounting and bookkeeping groups in Australia and New Zealand are really, really strong and very, really active. So if you're not already a member, I'd highly recommend going and finding out, and spending a bit of time on these because they're a really great resource for you. So look, we've finished a couple of minutes ahead of time, which is great. If anyone has any questions, please let us know. And I thought I'd just kick us off with one which we often get, and that's how do you make a social media post more engaging? And obviously we've talked a little bit about the importance of having a great image. So this is, I suppose, a couple of other things that you can add to it. So first off, think about a really great sort of snappy text and headline. So and in the way that I suppose if you ever go on the Daily Mail, you'll see the sort of the clickbait type stories and you're like, oh, that just looks so interesting. I have to click on it. I have to learn more. Think of it like that, you know, so if you can make the text really, really interesting, even if you're just going to get people, you know, back to your website to talk about a product or a service, hey, it doesn't matter. If you do it well, you're going to get more engagements because they're like, that sounds intriguing. That sounds interesting. That speaks to me. I'm going to do it. You can also add videos. So yeah, you can have static photos or you can add videos. So this might be a short video which you've recorded on your webcam or your phone. A lot of people now are using Loom, where you can literally record something on your camera and then sort of edit it very, very easily and then upload it straight into Facebook or one of the other channels. So this is a great way if you've just had an idea or a thought, or if you're at an event, or if you've just bumped into a client, and you can just record something 30, 40 seconds and get it out there. So just another way to be sort of, I suppose, to drive engagement by being a little bit different, especially with video, which we know has such great engagement.
Yeah, we've definitely had some Boma users have real success with that. So even just taking, what's your most commonly asked question from the last week or 2 weeks, and answer that in a short video. Yeah, as Charles said, Loom, and actually I myself have even used Zoom. So I've just literally opened my Zoom and recorded myself to do really short, sort of even 30-second videos. So 30 seconds to sort of, do you reckon there's a maximum limit, Charles? 3 minutes or so?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, the shorter the better because people are more likely to see all of it. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say about a minute and a half. What would you say, Rachel?
I was going to say, it depends on the channel you're going to put it on. So if it was something like Instagram or Facebook, you'd probably be looking at 15 seconds, no longer than 30. Right. But potentially on LinkedIn, there's a bit more stickability with people engaging in, you know, relevant content. So that could be a little bit more short form and more long form. Yeah. That's definitely one of the kind of the key takeaways with social is just think about your target audience and how they use different social channels. You know, Instagram is much quicker and faster and more image based. Facebook is a bit of both, really. It's a bit of imagery and a bit of content, whereas LinkedIn can really be a longer form content, kind of, you know, educate people and, you know, they're there to read content really.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, Rachel, thanks so much for joining us, and everyone, thank you so much for your time today. We really, really appreciate it. We'll be sending out a recording of this tomorrow, so you can watch it again or share it with any colleagues or friends. And we'll also have a little bit more information about Boma and what it is we do. If you've got any questions about today's session, just hit reply to that email, pop your question in, and we'll do our best to answer it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks everyone for your time, and thanks to Charles and Kat for joining us this afternoon. And yeah, take out Charles's offer on any questions and stuff tomorrow. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us, everyone, and have a good rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks all. Bye.